Hello, welcome to another episode of the Bloomers Podcast. My name is Amr. The Bloomers Podcast is a podcast where we talk about mental health and self-help topics. So if you want to subscribe and you're new, that's cool. That'd be awesome. Basically, I want to talk about relationships, marriage, and lowering gaze today. So, if you've noticed on this channel, I haven't made a video about relationships in almost a year and a half. I've been in a different place. I just turned 23 recently, and every birthday is always a reflection for me on my life and where I am and what I'm doing. I'm in a very good place right now. My life is very busy. I just had one of the busiest and stressful weeks of my life. A lot of the time when you just don't have time for yourself, things kind of suck. Work, either school and after school you're doing stuff, or work and after work you're doing stuff. So for me, it was after work and it was really intense. After work was just really intense. Didn't really have time to be by myself. So lately I've had some of that time. And, I was also at Muslims, they go to a Friday prayer. It's like a Sunday version for Christians. And there's an imam, and they give a speech or a sermon, and everyone who's attending is on the ground, sitting on the floor. It's very humbling. The idea that, you have to listen to another person, speak about ideas and, teach you something. And there it was one of my friends at university, who was giving a speech about how, the state of where, Muslims are in terms of relationships and stuff. And by the way, I hate to bring religion into this podcast because this podcast is not based on that. I created another podcast for Islamic topics. You can find it in my Instagram bio. That after that speech, I went up to him, I'm like, bro, that was one of the best things I ever heard. It reignited my passion or, beliefs in this topic that I've been pushing away and kind of ignoring for a while. And the reason why was because I just, I was in a place, and I've documented this in my videos in the past. Those are up, you can go watch them. What I tried to do was I really wanted to make this something that I was doing. My idea of being in a relationship or, being in love with a woman was something that I wanted to have, and I've always wanted partnership in my life since I was 16. It's been an idea that's just this is fulfillment, and this will bring me peace in my life, and that's genuinely been what I've been wanting. So I tried to do it within boundaries in the right way, and it just didn't work. And because of that, for the last almost 2 years now, I just haven't been really exploring that part of my life. And one of the reasons why was because I was accepting the way it is. And what I mean by that is the idea of the Western idea of relationships and marriage. Now, one of the things in Western society is that, and I talked to so many of my friends and so many people who are older than me who are giving me, dating advice and stuff like that. And they were like, okay, you're still too young, right? And I was 21, 22 at the time. And I'm 23 now, so they'd still consider me young, but they're like, oh, you get married in your, late 20s when you're more financially stable and settled. And these are all ideas that are very Western. And again, I don't want to bring Islam into this and religion, but one really good thing. So there's a lot of good things about, Western society, but, at the end of the day, I'm a Muslim. And I believe that Islam is perfect. It's very misinterpreted and represented and put in place in governments and societies in incorrect ways. But on a personal level, I know for a fact it is such a perfect thing, and has brought me so much peace and so much clarity to my life and direction and ways of living. And one of the things that Muslims do is they get married when they're younger. And I love that. I love that idea because, you get two people who are not fully developed or mature, and you bring them together, and now they can become mature together and grow together. That's one thing that if you bring two people who are older, and you'll often find that they're more incompatible because they've already developed their own, lives, their own ways of thinking. It's harder to bring those kinds of people together. But there's a beauty in growing together with a woman like that. And that's been something that I've always been wanting. But this idea in our whole society here, and I'm Canadian. I love my country. I love Canada. There's a reason why I stay here even after my parents immigrated here, is because I love it. And that idea is something that is stopping, people nowadays. Is just like, you need to be, mature and developed, and you need to be mature and you need to be developed, but you don't have to be all the way where it's like late 20s, early 30s. It's too far. And another thing is that, in the West, they love to preach about freedom, freedom of speech, which, doesn't really exist. Freedom freedom of anything. And we see how this plays out. I mean, just look at what's going on with the Epstein files lately, or look at the way how the West begins wars around the world. I mean, these values of being free and just doing it whatever the hell you want have such negative consequences. But let's take this idea of freedom to do what you want, right? So, let's just talk about what happens in Western countries, right? So you get to wear whatever you want. You get to do whatever you want within reason, moral reason. You get to smoke. You get to drink. You get to do drugs, do all these things, right? You get to have sex with whoever you want. There's no rules about that. All right, so we take that. We see that, right? And I've talked about this on my other podcast. If you have to obey every single mood, every single instinct, every single impulse, you're not free. You're controlled. You're controlled by yourself. Your instincts. You're a slave to your instincts. You're a slave to your desires. That's wrong. We need restraint, and we need restraint against these types of things because, for example, let's take drinking for example, right? You drink whenever you want. Look what is the advantage of drinking? There's no advantage of it. There's no positives, right? It only causes harm and pleasure. Let's take having sex with people, whoever you want, right? How many problems does this cause, man? Oh my God, STIs. You got people who, have abortions. And by the way, just so we're clear, I am pro-choice on a societal level, but on myself, I would not put myself in that position because of my morals, right? I'm very particular with, I want to have one woman in my life, and I want to be married to that woman, and I want to have my, sexual relations just with that one person. Therefore, something like an abortion wouldn't be something that I'm like encountered with as a problem because it's a very, conscious decision of, okay, I'm dedicating my life and my honor to this one person. And that's something that's missing with the way the West runs. Drugs, look at how many problems drugs cause. Overdoses, ruins relationships. Homelessness is strongly correlated with the drug use. There's so many issues with these Western values. I'm not saying these things don't happen in foreign countries, and a lot of the problems in foreign countries are caused by the West, causing problems there, drawing up borders wrong, dividing ethnic groups across these borders. Now they're at conflict with each other. Divide these borders up, keep them down. Oh, I could go into that like very, very in depth. But just for the sake of this, the way I run things in accordance with my faith is okay, with a woman, very strict boundaries, right? And one thing that I've been trying to do with my parents is get them to be more involved in the process of me finding, a spouse. And I had to, that was a bit of ego there where I have to do this. But to put that aside and be okay, I don't have all the answers. I'm not a pro. I can't do this alone. I need some support. They've been supporting me in that's been nice. And when you come across, a person who you've spoken to a bit and you think that things could go well, you introduce the families together because now you have boundaries. You can see each other more within a good place where you're not going to be private or alone or potentially say something inappropriate. The reason why you're not going to say things that are inappropriate or weird is because of your dignity. There we go. And your honor. There's something that is inherently wrong, and I haven't done it, but inherently wrong about, flirting with someone, showing someone your naked body, having sex with someone who you don't know. And the reason why I'm really focusing on this idea of sex and your body and stuff like that is because this is something that's such a big problem in our society. Very, very, especially in Western society, it's a very big problem amongst men, where they can't seem to deal with this or overcome this idea of looking at a woman in a physical sense. And then you bring in, so there we go, boundaries, privacy, keeping things, within the interactions of the family, keeping things, being a modest person. You're not focused on your each other's bodies, but character, right? And, when you look at it through that lens, and when I have not been operating through what I used to do before, which is just like, okay, like go and approach women who you don't know and talk to them, it's not going to work. The more effective way is mutual friends, other people who know you and know that person, and then kind of bring you two together. That is the more effective way of creating a bond that actually lasts and that's actually like, genuine. A lot of the time, you're going to find that, like, a lot of the time the West just doesn't really work. I mean, in our last podcast, last guest episode, Samid, who was the guest, he talked about how he thought it was the norm that, divorcing just happens. All his friends were divorced. A lot of my friends who the parents like grew up here were divorced, right? And it's a very normal thing here in Canada, for example, to have divorced parents. And that's an example of like, how it doesn't work. Now, you can make the argument that a lot of our parents who are immigrants, they should be divorced. But there's a reason why they're staying together. It's because a lot of these marriages, not all of them, a lot of them are flawed, but some of them, they've actually created like a bond based on like, they maintain their honor, they maintain respect, they maintain, boundaries, and they didn't overstep them until marriage came, and then, love came at that point, or even before. And, like personally, my parents, they took 2 years, they got engaged, and then they took 2 years of knowing each other before they got married. And like, thank God that was a good thing. And that's just something that, I think is so good, because they started young, and then they built that relationship and made sure it was secure for 2 years. That's a long time. And then they got married, which is great. And with that approach that I was talking about like, keeping things respectful, keeping boundaries, getting your family involved, you are now protecting relationships in your society. So it's taken very seriously now. And it's not just something where that you like happens and you throw it away, and now it's gone, and now you've spent so much time with that person, you've, embarrassed yourself, you've shown them who you are at your very core, and I'm going to say it again, and I'm going to talk about it later in this video. Like, the idea of showing someone your naked body is so fundamentally wrong, and it's so normalized here, and no one wants to talk about it. That's the thing, especially in my community. No one wants to talk about this problem. And, just the idea of enjoying the fruits of marriage before marriage is fundamentally wrong. And I really don't like that. We shouldn't enjoy the fruits of marriage. Marriage is a very important, special thing, man. And this is like the most important relationship in your entire life, is who you marry. Because now you're setting the example for your children. They're going to look at the man and the woman that they're going to base their whole life around. For me, especially looking at my mom, I can't imagine what my idea of my mom would be if my parents didn't have the relationship they have, and if my mom was, like, for example, a housewife or something. My idea of women would be way, way worse, because I saw a woman who's very ambitious, highly hardworking, highly devoted, a great wife, an amazing mother. That's my standard. My standard is very high for the type of woman that I want to be with, and I think that's had a very strong impact on me. Like, I'm now, an ambitious person. I'm in a job. I'm in a profession. I'm in my career, but I still want to go, get to a better and higher place eventually. And, I work hard. I strive to be, good to my parents and provide for my family and stuff like that. Great stuff. Thank God. I love my parents. And this just brings a bit of the conversation in terms of finding the person. Like, one thing that I think about is a lot of the time, when men and women talk, they'll be like, okay, most people are bad. Most men are bad. Most women are bad out there. But if most people say that most people are bad, what does that say about most people? If you think about it deep down, it says that they're not self-aware, right? So if most people are saying that, they're talking about themselves, right? Also, maybe it says that we're too quick to judge, if you have a problem with someone and then you have a fight, like, are you actually hearing them out as you would want to be heard out? You have all these reasons for these problems or why you did something, and you want to be heard, but what about hearing the other person? I think a lot of the times we, like, our egos prevent us from apologizing or hearing the other person out, and it sucks, man. And in the moment, it's harder to embody that than to me just saying it. But yeah, and I think the better way to approach dealing with people in the world is to always start out with the best intentions, with the best actions, with the best mindset. Give them the chance, and if they give you a reason to, think that they're a bad person, then you maintain that opinion. But you always start out a relationship or any friendship with, okay, this person might be good. Let me just be my best with them as I can, and then I'll do whatever I can on my end, and if they gave me a reason to not like them, then I'll have that opinion. But starting things out, always have a good way of thinking, because if we just have this opinion of most people are bad, most people aren't good, you're not going to attract any good in your life. You have to have that deep belief, and I think most of us do have that deep belief in life that, people are good, but it's just the world and morals and stuff that corrupts us. And one thing that I just wanted to talk about, it's kind of irrelevant, but also kind of relevant, is like, and I know this is a hot take. Some people will disagree, but I really value overexpression in relationships and friendships and people in my life, with people in my life. Like, we all know, like, let's take a TV show that's gone on for way too long. That's an example of overdoing it to the point where it's not good. But, when you finish your food, you'd rather have food left than have no food left and be hungry and wanting more. If you, spend money on something, you'd rather have more money left over than no money left over and you want more money because you need it. Stuff like that. So in relationships and with my friends and my family, I always try to overexpress, because overthinking is better than underthinking. Overgiving is better than undergiving. Over apologizing is better than under apologizing, because imagine how that person feels, or how they would feel, if you underdid all those things. The alternative is way better than underdoing it. So overdoing and giving a lot until you're given a reason not to is an action that I value in my relationships with people in my life. And I think that that's something that we are just lacking, because I personally, I put a lot out into the world. I try. There's times where I'm not able to, or I'm weaker because things are happening. There's a lot happening in my life all the time, especially now. So I'm very busy nowadays, and I really value my free time. But like, when you are able to overdo it and go the extra mile, that's an important thing. Going the extra mile for people, even if it's just like a couple of words, doing something different, trying to be, and this is something else that I value in my life, is being different. Like, me as a man, in this context, for example, in like a relationship, what am I doing to be different? What am I doing to stand out? Same thing with, like, I don't know, applying for a job. What are you doing to stand out from the crowd? Like, what is your special trait? What do you actually do? How do you make the world better? Like, what are you doing? Right? This is so important to me. Like let's say in terms of this idea of like relationships, like, what makes me a good man that someone would actually want? And the issue is, I think, is that men and women in our society are just like, okay, early 20s, no, it's just not going to happen, right? And I'll always have that open mind. But the only issue is that, it really depends on the other person, because a relationship is a two-person thing. I can do whatever I want. I can be like myself and have my rules, but they only go as far as me, because it's just me. But I need other people to cooperate. And I think, there are so many good guys out there. I know them, seriously, I do. I would say most that I know that are my age wouldn't be ready, but I know a lot of good young men my age. And I will say that the state of women is better than the state of men. So there are a lot more good women out there than good men. But yeah, it's still a thing. Don't lose hope. And I wanted to talk about something else, which is just something we don't talk about, something I've been talking about for years on this channel. And it's very important. I finally started to embody it, finally. And it's 3 words. Lower your gaze. Simple. Very simple idea. The idea is that for men, you don't look at women when you don't have to. And for women, you don't look at men when you don't have to. So, for example, I'm walking out in public and there's women who are walking by me. Instead of looking straight and at them, just look at the ground. No, why? What is the reason behind this? Respect, respect. I don't need to be looking at you. I am obviously attracted towards women. And if there's a woman of my age, I'm an unmarried person, and I have this natural attraction towards women. Now, I'm going to be better than my instincts and better than my desires, and I'm going to be better. So I'm going to look at the floor while I walk past these people, because that's going to help improve me. My discipline will be improved. I will be a better person behind closed doors. For example, if you want to stop watching porn, you lower your gaze. You know why? Because you will have way less triggers that will trigger you back to this addiction. You will overcome the addiction eventually when you finally get rid of all the triggers that are triggering you. For example, you're at the gym and there's women who are, wearing revealing clothing. You got the floor to look at, bro. When you're done your set, you stare at the floor. You don't have to be looking around and say, "Oh, the women are the cause of my, they're trying to bait us all the time, and they're causing me to, stare at them. They want me to look at them." No, bro. You do what's in your control. You can stare at the floor. I have this saying that I made up. The floor is my friend. Discipline will never bend. Lower my gaze till the end. That's my little poem that I say. And you'll find that when you stop, you'll find that when you lower your gaze, now you'll be a way better man behind closed doors. You want to be a better man? Lower your gaze. If you want to stop watching porn, you lower your gaze. You're going to eliminate triggers on your phone and in real life, and you will overcome this addiction. What else? There's some other stuff. If you wanna stop comparing yourself to other people, you lower your gaze on your phone and in real life. You focus on yourself. The floor is your friend. You can stare at the floor and have your own thoughts and have your own whole universe and everything like that. Let people be. They can be, and let them do whatever they want. Focus on you. And just embodying this and practicing it has helped me so much, and it's been such a big step in being a better man. What is the trajectory that you want to be on as a man? Who do you want to be in 6 months, 1 year? If you want to lower your gaze, you're going to become better. It's also a matter of when you get married. If you're a guy right now, young man, you're in university, whatever, a lot of women your age around you, you're going to be looking at women because you're interested in them and you want to have a partner. But when you get married, what are you going to do then? You have your partner now. Are you still going to be looking around? You might as well practice from now, because what is that looking around really doing for you? I mentioned earlier that, that strategy didn't really work for me of approaching women in that way. It doesn't really work. And, we naturally, humans stare at things that they like. If I'm looking at my mom, I want to look at my mom because I love her. But this rule doesn't apply to, family. But I look at my mom because I love my mom. I play video games. When I play video games, my eyes are glued into the screen because I love what I'm seeing. And you know, the idea here is that you need to be better than your instincts. You need to be better than your mood. You need to be better than your emotions. You need to triumph these things, and you need to, sorry, not triumph. That doesn't even make any sense. Overcome these things to be free and to have discipline. You know, if you want to improve your discipline, lower your gaze. You will see that it works. Behind closed doors, you will be a better person, guaranteed. There's no argument about that. Like, and especially with the social media thing, man, and comparing yourself to others, lower your gaze. Don't look at this stuff, man. I got off Instagram, right? I mentioned that in one of my videos last year. And then I got back on because I started a meme account, secret meme account, like earlier this year. I also started another podcast, and then I have this podcast. I deleted my personal Instagram, but I've made it so there's no posts that are suggested. I don't really follow people on 2 of the 3 of the accounts. On my podcast account that I do follow people on, it's very specific content. I don't do any scrolling. If I scroll, it's like barely any, and it's not like people's lives and stuff like that. It's like some of my friends, authors, quotes, pages with quotes and stuff like that. But there's no like, you know, women half naked and stuff like that, because that is fundamentally harmful for me and for the world. Because, you know, and it's tough in this world where we have access to everything now, and porn is one of those things. And again, people don't talk about it, and I'm going to talk about it right now. When you encounter all those things on your phone, you know, women dancing and you know, half naked and stuff like that, which let them be. They can do that. We can consider it wrong and morally incorrect in our book, but just don't judge them. Don't put it on them, anything like that. But when they do these things, they can trigger you, and they can tempt you. But the best way to avoid the addiction in the first place, the other problem in the first place, is to avoid temptation. And if that temptation is there, you look at the floor. Simple. It's so good. And the thing is, this is completely within your circle of influence. So this is completely within your power. No one has to do anything except you. And people get to live their lives. And again, with that Western idea of freedom and doing whatever you want, despite the idea that if you get everything you want and you do whatever you want, you're not free at all. This works for everybody. This is a very good solution. And again, I hate to bring religion into it again, but this is why I believe that Islam is very perfect, and that when it's practiced actually completely objectively, it is so good. And Ramadan lately, like fasting and staying away from all kinds of sins and staying away from food, staying away from water, it's taught me that, like, you know, I have so much power, and I'm going to bring this, like, this is the Ramadan that I'm bringing these habits into my entire life, where I will be so much more disciplined and the exact person that I want to be, always behind closed doors and in public. Oh, it's such a good thing, man. Let me just see if I got everything I wanted to talk about, because that was a lot of fun. Yeah, I think I got everything I wanted to talk about. Yeah, man, just, you know, dude, the idea that I surround my life around is that, you know, the thing that most people do is normally the wrong thing, unfortunately. Like for example, but let's not take that out of context and say like, oh, most people don't kill, so killing is correct now. No, I mean, like, you know, the idea that most people don't care about their bodies. They'll drink, they'll smoke, they'll do drugs, they'll, you know, harm themselves, they'll, you know, engage in premarital sex, which I believe I saw a study, and it's something like 90% of people in Western society, which is crazy. That's a travesty. That's horrible. But no judgment on those people. I'm worried about myself and my family, no one else. In terms of that, I do care about the world. You know, freedom is not what it's made out to be. Freedom is when you actually have control over your life, and you're not just a slave to your instincts. And if you want to be a better man, you want to be a better woman, you lower your gaze, because you will finally show respect to men and women We don't get along too well in the world. We can get along better if we do that. And only when it's necessary, or when you have to. For example, I work with women only in my team, and there's no chance I'm lowering my gaze in that situation. We can't, But I try my best, and I try to be better, and I always, this is self-improvement, man. This is what this podcast is about. And I'm very, very passionate about these ideas, and I'll always will be. Yeah, thanks so much for watching. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. If you enjoyed this video, drop a thumbs up, drop a subscribe. You don't have to. That's not what it's about. It's just about discussing ideas, being better, improving myself in the world. Yeah, okay. Thank you so much. I love you. Take care. Lower your gaze. Bye.